is a good setup for this, man. It's
Yeah,
cool.
It's all right. Nice dark room.
I like it. Yeah. It's always fluorescence and shit with these things.
Right.
Just uncomfortable.
It is uncomfortable. My skin doesn't look good in it.
I feel like no one's does.
No.
It's unnatural to look good under those things.
Yeah. When's your next tour coming up?
I don't know.
You haven't really booked it yet?
No, I'm planning on doing the next 2 months, like really purposely staying at home.
Okay.
Because I need to recharge and just kind of like write some stuff and record some stuff.
Yeah.
So that's the winter probably,
Okay.
but most likely March.
What's your process like usually when you book a tour?
Just sort of shooting in the dark. I usually just kind of like I'll just ask around anybody I know, or usually I'll try to get somebody else to sort of run point on it.
Yeah.
Like Justin or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, because I mean I try to pre-plan it as much as I can. But
What age were you when you started touring? You're 24 now?
yeah, I was probably 18 or something like that. I mean, it wasn't really heavy touring for a while, but
Okay.
But I was 18ish.
Were you with a full band back then?
Yeah, punk band.
Okay.
Punkish.
Yeah. Yeah. So you probably grew up writing more punkish music.
Yeah, my whole life. Yeah, I was right, and it was like basically pop punk, but I couldn't do the vocal style or the guitar style. So I just ended up doing it was like surf guitar with pop punk songs, but more pop. And I couldn't sing, so it was punk, and yeah.
So you kind of retreated to the bedroom and did the acoustic thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I heard Elliott Smith one day. My dad played him to me.
Your dad introduced you to Elliott Smith?
Yeah. He opened that whole can of worms. I don't think he knew what he was getting into.
What kind of man is your dad?
He's a good man. He's just always gotten me into music my whole life. I mean, he doesn't play, but he's kind of artsy and introverted, and he's always listening to stuff. And he was a writer and an illustrator for a bit. So
okay, what was it? Because obviously, there's a lot of similarities between you and Elliott Smith, musically. I don't want to say personality-wise.
Certain aspects, maybe.
Maybe. Was there an element in his music that you immediately recognized as something that you could emulate or something you could relate to?
Vocally was the big one at first, because a friend of mine kind of really impressed upon me early on that like you should sing how you talk. Okay. And that took me forever to kind of come to terms with, because I just never liked the way I talked. But when I heard Elliott, I kind of realized I don't have to scream or affect any aspect of my voice. I can just kind of do it the way I want to do it, because that's sort of how he did it. Yeah. So I took elements of that, and then I liked the fact that you could play guitar like that, because I was into rockabilly and stuff too, but I didn't like the show-offy aspects of it, because I'm really not that kind of guy. And I liked that you could play the lead melodies with the chords and basically do pianos, stuff like piano parts, and that was really cool to me. That appealed.
If you watch Heaven Adores You, which I'm assuming you've seen.
I haven't seen it.
You haven't?
No.
We're going to watch it sometime.
Yeah.
Well, there's, he talks in that documentary, there's like interviews with him saying that he used to try to purposefully sound like Joe Strummer, or like it wasn't, his
that's cool.
His voice that he was singing in for a long, like the Heat Miser days, that wasn't really like his natural.
That I could see, yeah.
So it took him a while even to find his, to sing in his speaking voice.
Seems like that's a common thing too, like Kurt Cobain hated it, John Lennon hated it. Seems like a lot of guys that have the coolest voices, in my opinion, they all hate their own voice. I'm just like, all right, it's comforting, I guess. But
I hate my voice, man.
No, you have a good voice, man.
Thanks.
But it's proving the point.
It's hard for me to record vocals.
Yeah.
Because when I record, I know that I have infinite takes because I record myself. Yeah. And when I feel like I'm sounding good, it's when I'm on stage. And there's actually a sense of urgency, and it matters because it's a one-time performance. Yeah. So I feel pressure, and I think that in a way I thrive under that pressure. Yeah. So, but if I'm recording myself, like I have to double it, or else I don't think it sounds good.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
You're the same way, I know.
Yeah. It's different live. Yeah. I've tried to replicate that pressure in the studio too, and like either do it to tape or have people in there, or give myself a budget or whatever, just sort of like restrict myself in some way where I have to nail it, and it just crashes and burns every single time, because I just get stressed out, and then I sound stressed out. There's something about like the urgency of playing live combined with the room, like you're hearing the resonance of that place wherever you are,
I was just gonna say,
and the fact that you can just sort of toss things off live. I mean, not all the time, but I mean, it's like there's that kind of like, it's almost like skydiving. It feels like when you play a show, you just jump out and whatever happens, happens, and it's cool.
And I love that feeling.
Yeah.
And there's also, of course, like if the room has some good natural reverb, like we have upstairs, or, you know, I tend to ask for no reverb on my vocals because I used to ask for it and I don't want it anymore.
Yeah.
Because I want to push myself to really deliver a good performance without that reinforcement. But there's the reinforcement of the room. There's the reinforcement of just hearing your voice amplified.
Yeah.
That kind of leads you to embrace a different method. Like there's more, you have to apply more restraint almost.
Yeah, definitely.
While at the same time, you know, control. And I don't know, just to deliver a good vocal is a tough thing if you're not a trained singer and you kind of have an aesthetic that you're trying to make fully realized.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, a lot of things have to sort of line up, it seems like. The guitar, you can get up and play it. Yeah. Like, assuming your hands aren't really cold or you're not, like, you know, just tweaking on something, you can probably execute that. But vocally, it's like there's so many different variables that have to align. And I don't know, I think that's why I like doing the live things better, too, is that's out of the equation. It's like whatever I get right now is what I get. But yeah, it's a monster to grapple with that.
Do you try to keep your voice hydrated?
I try, I don't succeed, but I know. Mean, it's just kind of, because it's usually out of, like when I'm on the road specifically, it's always really gravelly because it's just the weighing, like how many times are we going to stop for everybody to pee versus how good do I want to sound tonight? And you just try to get that razor's edge. And there's like certain days it works, but for the most part, it doesn't work. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I'm worse at it than I should be. Plus the cigarettes probably, they help to a point, actually, I'm finding, but I always pass that point because I get nervous for the gig, and then I end up chain smoking before the gig, and then I blow the gig. Mm-hmm. So it's it's difficult, but I'm working on it. Yeah. That's what I'm going to do this winter. Yeah, let's get my health really dialed in. See what happens with that.
What's your plan? Do you have a plan?
Not yet. Okay. I jotted down a few New Year's resolutions. I'm going to start taking vitamins. Okay. And because I'm actually not crazy unhealthy, despite what I think my reputation is like a sickly bastard, but I mean, I like work out and kind of keep myself healthy that way, but I don't think I do much in terms of like keeping my throat healthy. So I'm going to try to like just drink a ton of water and get used to it and have vitamins and stuff, sleep more frequently, that kind of thing.
Hydration's definitely something that it's a resolution that I can't keep.
Yeah. Because it's every day. You can't you know, you can't just do it and say, all right, I checked that off. Yeah. You wake up and it's back at zero.
It's easy if you've been working out, if you've been like doing something strenuous and you feel like you need it. But most times of the day, I don't feel like I need water. Yeah. I feel like I need coffee.
Well, that's where I think it burns me, is because I don't do any of the cardio. Yeah. I just detest it and I can't get behind it. And,
what do you do for workout?
I just lift the weights and go around in there. It started when I quit drinking and stuff. I was like, I needed a thing. Yeah. And I was like, everyone was kind of pushing me in that direction. I figured I'd try it because I was too socially anxious to go to the gym. So I was like, well, I'll go to the gym and I'll kind of conquer that. Even if I never work out, I'll at least have this. And then I ended up liking lifting the weights. And so I do that. So I sort of like don't realize that I'm depleting myself and I just don't do anything about it. And then, so I'm going to get better at dealing with that. But it's better than nothing, I suppose.
How do you, I'm curious about this. When you're on the road, how do you eat? What's your diet like?
I eat like pretty well. I don't eat a lot when I'm out generally. That's kind of my only rule of thumb with it, is because my stomach always hurts. So I eat mainly crackers when I'm out there, and honestly kind of at home too, but just kind of like I'm a vegetarian. So I eat, I guess by default, it's a little bit healthier because the stuff you can eat at a rest stop when you're a vegetarian versus when you're not is just different. But like pizza and subs, like Subway, we go to a lot when I'm with Justin. Diner food is the one that's a rabbit hole. I love that. But yeah, I mean, just kind of normal. I don't really do much differently. I just don't eat a lot of like junk food when I'm out. I just don't want to feel sick all the time. But besides that, I just pretty much do what I do at home.
When you say your stomach hurts, do you get a nervous stomach before a show?
I have a nervous stomach all the time. All the time? Just every moment of every day, yeah. Before shows, it can be challenging, but it's anything really. Like if I'm staying at somebody's house and I'm like freaked out about making a good impression, it's that. Or if it's the gig, it's that. If it's the airplane, that's always a big one. I'm terrified of that. So stuff like that. But I just try to get ahead of it and not, give myself any more reasons to worry.
Have you found that it's related to your diet at all?
Only if I just screw it up wildly and just eat like a cake right before a flight.
If you eat junk food, it's going to be worse.
Yeah, definitely. But besides that, there's nothing I've really found that makes it better. So I think that's just a lifelong thing. It's been a lifelong thing, so I don't really see why it would change. But
diet's a weird thing.
Yeah.
I have to take Prilosec because I have like chronic acid reflux. It sucks.
Yeah, jeez.
Yeah.
We're like old men.
I know.
People probably expect rock stars, but no, we're elderly men.
I used to treat myself like a rock star. I used to do a lot of partying.
I don't get you.
Yeah. It wasn't so okay. In my earlier days of songwriting, a big like creative factor for me was smoking weed.
Oh yeah.
And I wish I could get back to that place.
Yeah.
And I feel like someday I might be able to, because it really did help.
Oh yeah.
Because it helped me just kind of be alone and meditate on what I was trying to say with a song.
Yeah.
Or it helps you to just be alone and play guitar by yourself and do nothing else and just let the riffs flow.
Yeah.
But you get to a certain point where you're like, well, I have to drive later, or I have things that I have to be responsible for. And that's kind of where I am now, is I'm just like, I've been totally sober for months and months.
Nice.
And it's not really that I ever had a problem with it. I just like feel like there's so much that I can mess up.
Yeah.
By not being sober.
Did you get that thing too, especially, I think it's specifically with weed, but you can't go to that place like just creatively anymore either. Like it just almost normals you out. Like I think it's around when they say you sort of stop having dreams, because then when you quit, you start having these really vivid dreams. I found I got to that place where like it helped me with songwriting for a while, and then I got to this point where it was just kind of like it dulled me or chilled me out or whatever, but it didn't do anything creatively. And then when I stopped, it was like this explosion, like it was weird. And then so that almost became the new high, and then so I stayed sober until that started being normal, and then I went back and then waited, and it was kind of fun for a little while, but I don't know, it's freaky sometimes with weed.
I get to a place where I get complacent. Yeah. If I am kind of entering a new phase, I get obsessed with creative projects. That's the best thing that it does for me, actually. It makes me obsessive. And so if I have one thing going on, whether it's a song or a short story or whatever, then I become completely immersed in that thing until it's done, or until it's at a place where I need to walk away from it for a while. And now, at this point in my life, if I did that and I became completely obsessive, I would ignore all of my other responsibilities.
Yeah.
So
that's the problem.
I feel like I can't do it, but that's the best thing that it does for me creatively, is it just lets me get fully immersed in a project.
That is pretty nice. I'm the opposite way with it, but it's still like an intensity feeling. Like it's still just something that I don't get out of normal life. But I tend to write a lot of different things to whatever degree of completion they are. Like when I'm on that train of thought, there's no real, I don't sink my teeth into anything. I just kind of like, there's an idea, I'll do that. There's an idea, I'll do that. And it's not like an ADD thing either where they're all half done, but it's like I could probably, if I got stoned right now, I could probably write a record right now in one take. Like that used to kind of happen, and I don't know if it was all keepable, but it was a complete thought, and that doesn't happen when I'm not stoned. I used to really like that. That's the only thing I really miss. That was fun. But
so it sounds like we have this in common. We both kind of used to be more prolific.
Yeah.
It was a drug-related prolificness.
I kind of was less. I used to write a lot when I was a kid. Like I'd finish like about 4 songs a day for probably from when I was 11 or so till 17.
Wow.
And that was like, and usually be recording them and stuff. And that was kind of like I was a straight edge then. So that was kind of like all I had and all I knew. I'd never done anything. And then once I had my first drink, I was like, oh, this is way easier. Like you don't have to confront your feelings or anything. You just do this. And it sort of trickled as that went up. It never went away, but it definitely, I just became an addict basically. And so now I'm in like another where I'm clean again. I'm kind of like, okay, like how do I want to do this now? Because I feel like the person I was before. Yeah. But I've been through the stuff that I went through after. So it's kind of like this other thing, but it's always been there though. Like it's always been simmering. It's just kind of comes out in different ways. Even just as schedules change too. I've noticed just playing more gigs, I write differently because I'm not just coming home from school and trying to blow an afternoon. It's like I might spend 12 hours in the car on the way to the gig or something like that. And so it's like I'm not sitting there with the guitar. It changes the way I approach things. So now I write a lot more lyrics and then I'll come home and I'll do the music in batches. Yeah. So it just changes like that for me, but I don't know. It's always swirling around. It's like a bad cough.
What's it like for you now to confront your feelings with a song?
Scarier now.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm just getting more in tune with them or if they've gotten scarier, but now it's a little bit more, I'm pushing myself to be more honest, because I just can't, like, I can't bullshit myself anymore. I've just been doing that for too long, and it gets just boring. And I think now I'm getting to the essence of things I need to work through too. Like, it's not just the, you know, tortured 18-year-old, like, oh my God, the world just doesn't get me. It's like when you start realizing, nah, it gets you. Like, you're just a piece of shit. It's like, it's like, oh, okay, now confront that. And that's where I'm kind of am with it right now. So it's I don't know, I'm into it. It's just, it's daunting. A little bit less of like the childlike wonder and the thrill, and more of the like, okay, like, it's an odyssey now. But it's not a problem, really.
So the new album is Pipe Dreaming. I'm assuming, based on the timeline that we've talked about, this album you wrote sober and the last album you didn't?
Well, they were both written at the same time, and they were both written drunk, for sure.
Okay.
But kind of various, like, some of them were just traveling songs. Like, a lot of them were basically anything that sort of sounds like a country song was probably written in a dive, just waiting to go on. And then anything that sounds introspective was probably written sobbing on my porch.
Okay.
And they were all recorded in various states of sobriety and stuff, but they kind of, like, it's probably not noticeable for anyone outside of my head, but like, I can kind of hear myself getting sober from the beginning of Guts, which is the record that came before it, to the end of Pipe Dreaming. Like, I can hear kind of that, the double tracks start going away.
Yeah.
And because I remember trying to really come to terms with what I sounded like now, just from years of blowing my voice and stuff. It's like I sound different than I did when I was 17.
Yeah.
So I decided to do a lot more single tracks by the end to kind of really make myself face that fear and of like listening to that. And there was just, with that came the challenges of like, all right, well now it sounds really, really raw. So how are you going to fill in those blanks? So I had to really focus on a lot more aspects of it that I hadn't when I was just being trashed all the time. So it got a little bit more meticulous, I think, but a little bit less skilled, because I didn't know how the hell to do any of those things.
Wow.
So it to me, it just felt like I was kind of having closure with those songs, but also laying out the groundwork for what I want to do with my life now. So that's how they feel internally. I don't know how they came out, but that's where I am with them.
Okay, so I'm not trying to put a spotlight on your sobriety. I'm trying to put a spotlight on your songwriting and how it's changed. And it sounds like how your songwriting has changed is you're trying to identify more with like having to live less behind the mask of double tracking and the mask of like studio effects.
Yeah, just to make sure that I can, because I still love those things and I love those sounds, but I want to make sure that I don't need them.
Yeah.
And because I just noticed like the reasons why I was hiding behind them were things that they were just insecurities that I had that applied to other aspects of my life. And I found that at one point when I go kind of a little over the top sometimes when I'm mixing these things. Sure. I usually like to do it myself, and there's this process of like a couple of weeks where I'm just running from my basement to the car and listening to it and stuff, and then running back and making tweaks, and this will go all night. And I started to find that like there were certain ways that I would affect my voice or my playing where I could actually hear like different insecurities or different things that I thought were kind of wrong with me emotionally, like things that I was covering up. I could actually hear them in the tracks and realize like those are parallels with like how I would be at a cocktail party or something like that.
Right.
So I started wondering if I could kind of like EQ out parts of my being that I didn't like. You know, if I could kind of go in and say, all right, like you got to really fix this. Like you're 24, you need to get your shit together around whatever aspect of your personality. So, but I could hear it in the actual mix. So I started using the mix as kind of a more tangible way of recognizing some of those problems and fixing them. And I hear that a lot on those records. It was sloppy in that sense. Like I probably shouldn't have released it that way, but like, yeah, it was a fight, you know. I could hear myself trying to come to grips with a lot of stuff, and so I'm proud of it. But
I do the exact same thing, and it's 100% about like, I love crafting a soundscape. I really do. It's one of the coolest things about recording yourself and about mixing. And I think I think it starts off as I'm trying to mask my insecurities about my voice or my musicianship or whatever. Yeah. And it starts as that, but it becomes something different. It becomes sort of a little sonic world that I want to manufacture. Yeah. It has nothing to do with artifice necessarily. It just has to do with, I want to live in this world for a little while. Yeah, totally. And I think that other people would enjoy having a visit here too. But I've recently been thinking about just doing live takes, Yeah,
that'd be cool.
Maybe overdubbing over them, but just setting up a few mics in a room and just trying to do everything live. And I think that that's the most honest way to do it. And if I had to do some overdubs, I'd just put a few harmonies in there and maybe an extra guitar part or two. That's all it really needs. And I'm coming to terms with this much, much later in life and in my musical career, just because being older now, I have a better sense of myself and I have a better sense of what my voice is, and I'm not necessarily trying to emulate any specific artist now.
I think that's the jump, is when you sort of cross that threshold from wanting to sound like your idols to kind of running out of idols that you think you can sound like, and then you're like, shit, okay, I gotta do me. And I think it's big personally when you hit that line. It's the scariest thing in the world, but it's cool.
I used to sing a lot more similar to Elliott Smith, just because, I was using my bedroom voice to record, and then to replicate that live was pretty easy. You just do it softly. Yeah,
exactly. You get kind of a different control too when you sing softly, because I used to do the same thing where, like, I share a room with my brother and like my family's close quarters, so I would have to sing in that voice to write, because everybody would be sleeping. But when I would play live, I realized it's awesome. Like, I pictured it kind of like the way a garden hose is when it has the different settings on it, and there's like the one that could like cut through paper, that's really straight and hard, and that one, that's how they tell you to sing. If you like take lessons or something, and they'll tell you, like, project and lasers and all this kind of stuff. That guy, I took singing lessons for a couple of months when I was really young, and he always told me, like, picture like a laser beam coming out of you, and that's cool. But like, A, your voice has to be on completely, and B, it only works if you know exactly where the hell that laser's going, which I don't. And so I would always picture it like that cone setting on the hose, where it's just sort of gently coming out and misting over everybody, and then you sort of cover the whole room, and if it sort of starts going the wrong way, you can kind of brush it over the other way a little bit. It's just, I think there's something to be said for singing quietly like that. You can get a room to shut up on a dime if you need them to. Yeah. And that's just kind of fun and kind of cool, and like creates such an ambience around it that I don't know. I really like that. I couldn't imagine seeing Elliott live, because he had that dialed in like every time. So
yeah. Well, you see some of the stuff from the later years. Yeah. He was falling apart, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah. But they were like heckling him too, though, in some of those. Like, his crowds got kind of rowdier, and that must have been really, really weird, really hard to, because you can't really get too much more revelatory and honest than Elliott, I don't think. Yeah. Without hitting into like the Nick Drake territory, where you almost don't have a prayer as far as longevity is concerned. And I don't know, I would have loved to see some of those guys, how they really had that just on point.
Nick Drake was an interesting one because he couldn't play live. Yeah. He couldn't do it. He had a handful of live shows and then just stopped trying.
It's almost like, I mean, I'm not glad that he's like that, like in an empathetic sense. Like, I wish, he could have had a better time, but it's good to know that those records are that genuine too. Because that's a big pet peeve that I have with a lot of kind of indie folk stuff that's going on in this day and age. It's just that people are way too put together for the stuff that they're singing about, and it irritates me, because it's like, I get the sense that like people will write about death and despair and like peering over that edge in a freaking Starbucks, and it's like, that's not, you got to be alone in your bedroom for like a week just shaking like, oh my God, what does my existence mean? And then you make that record, and whether it sounds good is, that's a whole other matter. But I like that there were those records where you can tell that guy, whether he chose to or not, just went to that place and put it on tape, and that's ballsy, and it's really cool. And Nick Drake went so far to that place that it would have almost seemed like a sham if he was able to get up there and, be a lounge act. That would have been so weird.
Well, I think about this a lot. The trick is you have to go to that place and find beauty in it.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you can't accomplish that, then you end up writing a record that's just the cliche of that place. Yeah. It's not authentic, and that's what you're hearing. But how much of that also is just Pro Tools? I know. How much of that is just people that have too much at their disposal? Yeah. To make something that comes out artificial.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, it's just, I get why people fall into that trap. I fall into that trap all the time, and it's just there. It's like we almost can't know when we're falling into that trap to some extent, but I think it can still be done.
None of your albums are totally studio, right?
The last couple have been studio in the sense that I've done them. They're not any live components, but...
Yeah, but you did them... What have you gone into a recording studio for?
Oh, I haven't done that for a while, for solo, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you about what you found beneficial about studio work versus home recording.
I think home recording's good because you can do anything at any time, and you really have to be alone with yourself. Yeah. And it tends to, if you're of that mindset where, I think just if you're like crazy introverted or something and you just thrive that way, which I do, like you can just go to that place as far as you want and just swim around in there for a while. And I like that. And you can screw up easily and early and not realize it. So you end up having to, you learn a lot about a lot of different aspects at once. And it's cool. It's a violent process to me. Like it's a kind of like a snowball type of thing of mistakes just rolling down a hill, but I do really like it. And in the studio, I think it's slicker. And if I have a really, really clear idea of what I want to do and what I'm going to need to accomplish to do it, I like going into the studio because it's generally just better mics and there's a little bit of oversight. So somebody's kind of making sure your guitar's tuned and stuff. But I just don't like the pressure of knowing I have a finite amount of time or knowing that there's somebody behind the glass looking at me, and if I blow a take 100 times, they're gonna be like, ooh, you know. I don't know. I just want it to be right, like the way it is in my head. And I've always figured my best situation would be to have an engineer who gets it and can take a beating and just kind of understands what's gonna happen there, but not have a producer really, because then it's somebody that can. It's like a perfect collaboration in that way. Like I love working with drummers for the same reason, because there's almost no overlap. And it's kind of fun. It's like they can go 100% to their creative place. I can go 100% to mine. And nobody has to be like sacrificing to make sure that they're playing the chords that they taught the bass player, that kind of thing. I figure that would be that way, where like they don't necessarily have a vision for the creative direction of the album, but they might be like, oh, that mic will sound incredible on that. Hey, try this. Or maybe you should like sit in a different spot in the room. Or because that's the stuff I just can't think that way. It's too mathematical and everything. So ideally, if I could ever have like a perfect world scenario, I would love that. Just like a nice big room and like a couple of good ribbon mics and a guy who's willing to just take the punches. That'd be fun. But
even having somebody to just push a button for you, it takes a lot off of your shoulders.
It really does.
Yeah.
It interrupts your whole train of thought when you have to go and like hit the space bar or hit the like the tape machine and kind of figure out where you are with it. It's these constant interruptions.
Yeah. But it takes a tremendous amount of confidence in yourself.
Yeah.
And even if you don't have that confidence going in, you kind of have to just fake it and say like, well, eventually I'll just have enough tracks to work with, and you know.
No, exactly.
Yeah. But what do you find about the DIY ethic that works for you?
I like being able to change directions on a dime. That's the big one. It's just, you don't have to commit to an idea and realize the idea is not gonna work, but you still have to do it. That's nerve-wracking for me. Like a few times in my life, people have invested in me in any capacity, and I realize at some point either I don't know what the hell I'm doing, or I don't know if this is gonna work. But there's that pressure of kind of like, you owe it now. Like you need to make this work because somebody put themselves on the line. That scares the hell out of me. Because on a basic level, it's like you just don't want to disappoint them. So I like that freedom of DIY. I mean, overall, I think if I could get swooped up by a label and taken for that ride, I would so do it.
Sure.
Because I also like having a bit of a foil to kind of react against and everything. But yeah, I like just the anonymity of being a DIY artist.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun, kind of risky and cool.
So anonymity means that you can work at your own pace.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the biggest benefit to it. Besides the fact too that you have to do it all yourself, so you kind of are forced to learn different aspects of the whole process, and I don't know, just you get a sense of what goes into it, which is cool, and I think that's kind of valuable. But
with every project that you do, you get a tremendous amount of edification out of it. Yeah. You come out of it, you know what mistakes that you won't make next time.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a big thing. And you also you learn new techniques.
Yeah.
You learn new things about microphones or whatever.
Yeah.
And you always come out of making a record like such a better player.
Yeah, absolutely.
You went into it with, yeah.
It's fun too, because it's like something, I don't know if you always realize right away, but down the line you'll hit this point where you're like, oh yeah, wow, I didn't know how to do that 6 months ago, and you just do it second nature, and because you had to do it every take of every song, and you just figured it out. Like, it's kind of cool. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's like playing a lot of hell gigs. It just toughens you up, and you don't realize it's happening, and until later on you realize nothing really scares you, and it's cool. And I think that's the biggest virtue I don't always appreciate about DIY, but it's definitely there.
We've talked about those gigs before.
Oh yeah.
You might have to kind of compensate with some cover songs here and there, and do some crowd pleasers.
Wagon wheel.
Yeah. The ubiquitous wagon wheel cover.
Oh my god.
Yeah. For you, when you're playing those kinds of gigs, how soul-sucking is it?
It was really bad for a little while. I mean, in general, I like it just because it's playing, and it's better than delivering newspapers and stuff. I can't do that again. But it took me a while to realize it. But I just figured out that I have to switch my objective to, instead of expressing myself, to just trying to make people happy, which was strange that it took that long for that light bulb to turn on, because I was like, Jesus, I gotta just stop being a sadist and like go up there and kind of like actually let these people who just want to have a beer, and then take a check and go home.
Yeah.
And once I started doing that, it was a lot more fun, because you can start like taking requests, and you can kind of start winging stuff. There's one particular bowling alley that I've played multiple times where it tends to just devolve into this drunken fiasco by the end of it, and everybody's just cranked up, and like somebody will come up. I'm standing usually next to a jukebox, and so they'll come up to me instead of the jukebox, and they'll ask for like Sweet Home Alabama or something, and I can BS almost anything on guitar, but I don't know the lyrics to a lot of stuff, so I'll always tell them like, I'll play it, but you're gonna sing it. And typically they're cocked enough that they're into it, and their friends at the table will get all into it, and everybody will be singing, and we'll be just having a great time like struggling through this song, and then the next person will want to do it. And once I started realizing that like that can happen, kind of through busking too, that used to happen, I kind of fell in love with it that way, because it is soul sucking, and like I have to ration them out and kind of not do too many of those in a row, because there's still nothing that's going to compare to getting up and singing my diary for a bunch of strangers. But I don't know, I got a bit more of a kick out of it that way. When, I don't know, it's nice to just see people happy, you know. It's weird that it took me 24 years to realize the simple joy in that, but some of these songs I put my foot down and like purposely not learned them, because I'm just like Freebird, I have it taped to my guitar, because I'm just like, I'm not going to spend a day making sure I know Freebird. I just can't do that. I love Freebird as a song, but I'm not going to be that guy.
I used to play Freebird all the time.
It's a classic. I mean, honestly, it's a huge guilty pleasure of mine, but just out of spite for how many times that's been yelled at gigs. I'm like, I'm never going to learn Freebird. I don't care. But I have played it. I
learned it early. When I was like 14, 15, I learned that song.
Did you learn all the like the guitar solos and stuff too?
No, I've never been a solo player.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah. I don't care about them.
Yeah.
Honestly. Like, if I'm recording, I'll play a lead in a recording, you know, and you kind of have to do that just to round out the song. But I don't know, just as a guitarist, I've never cared about playing solos.
Yeah.
I really appreciate other people's solos.
Yeah, totally.
But I don't want to learn them.
It's a totally different mindset.
Yeah.
It kind of runs counter to writing a lot of the time. I know a few guys who are great writers and also great soloists, but I don't know, it just doesn't operate in the same part of my brain, I'm finding.
My old bandmate was a terrific lead player. It was, you know, I was just like, I'm fine being the rhythm guitarist and being considered that, because we were playing my songs and his songs. He was the kind of player that could just play his own songs, rhythm and lead, same time.
Wow.
Somehow. I don't know how. But, you know, I'm not that kind of player, and my songs kind of needed a little bit of color to them. And I had never heard myself accompanied before by that kind of player. But after playing together, I didn't then look at my songs and go like, okay, I now need that kind of playing on all of them. I just kind of developed a different way of writing that already had that color built in. Yeah. You know?
That makes sense, because I mean, that's like that's a world in itself, like being that kind of guitar player. You have to commit to that so hard that you go there, and that becomes what you live and breathe. I think if you're going to be like that caliber of it, like that has to be your life. And like a lot of the really good, I was really into like blues and stuff when I was young, and I just noticed that after a while, like I just liked writing more. And you hit a wall with writing when you're playing that kind of guitar, just from the way you have to approach it. But those guys, they have no walls because they're just soloing, but they get as much soul out of that as I could ever hope to get out of a song.
Well, this is where your exploration into open tunings is going to come in.
That's coming. Yeah, that's this winter.
I think I actually hit that wall. I was playing an open D minor, Dad Fad, for a while, and very bluesy tuning. It's easy to write like a minor key blues song in that tuning. It's great. But no, I definitely did hit a wall with it. But if you're coming from standard tuning, it's a whole world opened up to you.
Yeah.
You know?
No, that's coming. I'm real excited to get into that stuff.
Yeah, but you've never done much exploring in it, he said.
No, I hate tuning the guitar. I just never do it. I don't know what it's in now. It typically I tune it to itself, and it gradually gets flatter. Yeah. And I don't know what the hell it's in. Probably somewhere between C and C sharp right now, but it's standard, but just low.
Isn't that the great thing about not playing with anybody else?
Yeah, I love it so much.
You don't need a tuner ever.
It's honestly my favorite thing about it is I can just pop that thing out of the case and go up on stage and just hope to God it's going to work. But it's fun.
I can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
I use the harmonica. I can't do it anymore.
Oh, shit. Yeah, that'll do it. That harp suits you, though. It's cool. It's good. It's good with that style.
Yeah. It took me a while to figure out that was a way to accompany myself. I wasn't sure I could do it because I'm not that coordinated. I'm still kind of working on it. I've only been doing that for like 2 years, but yeah, it works. I have a question about busking.
Yeah.
You know how comedians will write on stage? You know, they'll riff until something's funny, and then do you ever do that when you're busking? Do you ever just kind of riff for a while?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. When there's a lot of trains and I don't want to sing over them, I'll just sort of play stuff and run the recorder sometimes and see what sticks. But a lot of times it's just I'll mess with arrangements or like with structures that way. Like I'll just sort of because you get real time feedback on things. So if you have too many verses in a row and the song gets flat, you can tell. And I like it for that. So I'll try different variations of things or loop back and sing another verse that I kind of botched the first time or cut things off early or sometimes I'll put myself into a bit of a trap and like try to dig myself out of that. And which I've heard, I think Jerry Seinfeld does that. I think that's where I heard about that, where like you sort of set yourself up for failure and you make yourself get out.
Interesting.
I'll practice things like that every so often so that when I'm in an actual pressure situation, I can do it. And busking's good for that because you still can't suck. Like you still can't just screw up spectacularly because people are not cool with that generally on their home commute. So it's a challenge, but it's also they're going to be gone in 2 minutes. So if you do happen to screw up and the worst happens, they're going to forget about you. Yeah. But if you do it right, they might not, or they might just go home without heckling you, and that's cool too. But
sure,
I like it for that. Yeah. I do more performance practice stuff than songwriting practice stuff, but a little bit both.
Why? Well, you re-recorded "If You Bring Me Flowers," right, for the new record.
Yeah.
Why? What felt unfinished about it to you?
I just didn't finish it. The first version I just didn't finish. I just put it out, but like I didn't really know how to put instruments on that particular song. Like it's kind of like a weird. It's not weird now, I guess, but at the time it was a weird picking pattern for me, and it was kind of just. I don't know if it's quite syncopated, but it almost felt like that. So there wasn't bass specifically. I remember was the thing I wanted to put on it, and I could never figure out what notes should really be accented, and I just wasn't thinking in those terms back then, and that always irritated me because I wanted that song to be almost kind of like Tears in Heaven kind of thing, just like the most.
The picking pattern, I can hear that. Yeah.
Yeah, or like kind of Richard Thompson type stuff. Like I just wanted it to be very smooth folk kind of sounding, and I just have never been of that caliber. And so I sort of put my mind to it this time that I was gonna just double down and figure out how many like pianos I could put on it and strings and shakers and do it all stitch by stitch instead of saying like I need to have an arrangement for this. So I just did it like that. Like I would take it beat by beat and just say, all right, it needs a shaker on that beat, it needs a tambourine on that beat, and I just figured that was worth finishing that way once I started doing it, so might as well re-release it. But
I was really honestly curious what you thought it was missing on the first one, because I think that you did accomplish the goal that you had.
I'm glad,
on the first record.
I definitely learned a lot from that one, because that was a song where there couldn't be any extraneous beats, because it was just, there's too many jarring like little turns in the chords and stuff, and it was a terrible experience mixing that song, because it was constantly like, oh God, I got to pull down that kick drum a tiny bit, or like, you shouldn't be able to hear that tambourine. But there was a lot of like, you'd miss it if it wasn't there type of thinking that went on. And that was good to dive into that, to learn about that. But yeah, I don't know if I would do that approach a lot now. I think it was just good to, like, I wanted to hem it in and figure it out. But yeah, I'm glad I did it again. I think it was more of just a personal conquest than anything, but it felt good. It was fun to do.
You tend to have a lot of songs that you want to revisit, and just kind of, either they're irrelevant to this time in your life, or they just kind of don't seem worth it.
Almost all of them. There's only a couple that I've ever recorded that I've been like, yeah, that did that one.
I don't mean ones that you've already recorded. I mean ones that you've written that maybe didn't get enough attention. Oh yeah, well that too, constantly. More so now, just given how disjointed the last few years have been. There's a lot of things that I half wrote or half finished or just didn't give a shit when I was doing it, and specifically it's with lyrics for the most part. Because a lot of the time, musically, especially if I'm playing with other people, I'm relatively happy with that, because just given that I've had to play it more than 3 times, like, the music is somewhat satisfactory to me, but the lyrics, I can get away with singing page of scratch lyrics forever. Yeah. Until the night before the session, and then be like, oh God, I gotta actually write these. And those are the things I always want to go back and fix. Yeah. I have a lot of drafts of things that are just stalled because of that, because I couldn't figure out how to articulate a thought unpretentiously or appropriately for the song or something like that. Yeah, I tend to perform with scratch lyrics a lot. It's fun sometimes. It's fun. I always hesitate because I know that the song isn't poetically the best that it can be. And then after singing it for a few months, I realized that it is. Like, it is what it needs to be. Maybe not at its poetic best, but it's at its performance best. Yeah. And then it works. Yeah. I write to such specific rhyme schemes and meters that my word choice is really important to me. Yeah. That stuff matters, though. I mean, there's a lot more musicality going on with words, I think, than people assume sometimes, especially in this genre, because it's so easy to just get up there and deliver a sermon. But it's like, you hear a lot of really, really good writers, and the music dances and the lyrics dance, and it's kind of just, there's nothing more sacred than when those two things intertwine the right way. And absolutely, I'm forever chasing that thing, and that's just gonna probably kill me one of these days. But no, that's the best. I love it too much to give it up. That's hands down the best thing to chase. Like, listen to like Visions of Johanna or something like that, and it's just, there is no earthly reason that song should be unpretentious and 7 minutes long and about whatever the hell that's about with those turns of phrase. Like, none of that should work, but it works perfectly in every way. And it's just, I listen to that song sometimes and I'm just like, God, he somehow picked the simplest route through that, but holy hell, is it like a complicated landscape he's going. It's just, I don't know, it just really blows me away. And I've read a lot of like F. Scott Fitzgerald too, and he does it in prose somehow. He's amazing at it. Yeah, he's incredible. Definitely. He's weirdly one of the best lyricists I've ever read. It's just, anytime you read anything by him, it's just like, good God, they almost get stuck in your head. Have you read much Salinger? No, I think I've dabbled, but Catcher in the Rye was the only main one. At the Puzzle Factory, I saw a copy of Franny and Zoe. Get it? Yeah. and read it. Yeah. Next time I'm there. You got to read Franny and Zoe. Because it is that kind of, Salinger wrote rhythmically very similar to Fitzgerald. But he wrote in kind of more modern, like, for me, there's a certain linguistic quality of the 50s, of like the late 40s and 50s, the post-war America. Yeah, totally. That I appreciate a lot more than I tend to appreciate the 20s and 30s. Yeah. But Salinger just has that poetic quality in him where, it is lyrical. And I don't know, I appreciate all of it. Like, the simplicity of Hemingway is often great, but a little bit too masculine. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. When he hits, though, he really, really hits. Yeah, but it's sometimes I get so frustrated at him in between those hits that I'm just like, oh, shut up. And then I'll put the book down for a while, and then I'll remember, like, oh yeah, he's pretty good. And go back. Anytime that Hemingway deals with tragedy, it's always tremendous. Absolutely. Yeah. But I mean, when Hemingway, like, just writing about, romance or something like that is usually pretty. You can put it down.
That's the thing. Yeah. I remember I was thinking earlier today for some reason about I think it was The Sun Also Rises.
Yeah.
But I remember being kind of like blown away by that one because the romance parts were so skimmable because it was just such complete bullshit. But then there was this one point where he was describing a bullfight.
Yeah.
And he did it so eloquently that I was so caught up in it that I like wanted to go to one and like see it. And then I realized afterwards, I was like, that's the mark of a really excellent writer. Cause I'm not really repulsed by too many things more than stuff like bullfights. They just disgust me. But for those paragraphs, he had me so locked in that if somebody had handed me a plane ticket right then, I said, all right, you're going to go see one. I'd be like, okay, this sounds awesome. Like holy shit, he completely hoodwinked me. Like, it's incredible.
I've never in another part of my life wanted to hunt a lion. But you read those short stories and you're like, I can do this.
Yeah. It sounds incredible. Yeah. Like you forget that you'd be killing a lion at the end of it. You're just like, I'm
my qualifications are I've read this story now. And
I went through that so bad when I got into Hunter Thompson.
Yeah.
That was the first and kind of the only time I've ever been literally out of breath after reading a book. I read Fear and Loathing the night before I got my wisdom teeth out because I was like, all right, like if we're going to do this, I was like scared shitless of the whole thing. So I was like, if I'm going to do this, like I'm going to have some fun.
Yeah.
And so I got a Hawaiian shirt and I got Fear and Loathing and all the crap they gave me to get through the surgery. Oh, I went ham. It was a good surgery. It was a good time. And I just blew through that book. But it informed a lot of my 20s so far.
I definitely also blew through that book when I read it. It was maybe 3 or 4 days. Yeah.
It's just the way it opens. It's just such a classic opening. It just you start at like 100 miles an hour.
Yeah.
I think literally, and then it's just kind of.
You read it as somebody, I'm assuming, who has watched the movie several times.
I hadn't seen it at the time. I don't even know why I grabbed it because I hadn't even really heard of him. I just, for some reason, I think I would usually just grab stuff off the library shelves that looked interesting, and for some reason I grabbed that night, or maybe I heard that he's a good drug writer or something, and I was about to go into that rabbit hole, and I don't know, but whatever it was the right call, and I'm glad I did it. But I had never seen the movie until maybe a year later. Which I like it. I mean, I'm glad I read the book first because my images of the book were different.
I wish I had that perspective, honestly.
I think it was luck because I totally would have seen the movie first if I hadn't read that book that day.
The movie is so visually disorienting that if you then read the book, it kind of throws off your ability to picture things probably the way that they were written, you know?
Yeah, totally. Because I think the movie was filmed, it seems like it was filmed more through the lens of the acid. And I read the book more through the lens of the cocaine. Like for some reason, I read it as like this lightning fast, straight shot through the desert with all this crazy shit flying out of the car. And the movie was like this slow molasses kind of weird
really
trip.
A hallucinogenic movie,
And I mean, I've never done anything hallucinogenic besides just too much weed sometimes. So so I don't know if I am missing that, you know, because maybe if I dropped acid and then watched it, it would blow my mind the way the book did. Because I love it as a movie, but it didn't hit that nerve the way that the book did. But I don't know.
You read The Rum Diary?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I love that book.
That was a good one.
I love that book so much. I love that movie so much. Something about, again, it's something about the 1950s, the late 50s, early 60s, just anything post-war, it just grabs me. More than any more contemporary work ever does. I
don't know what it is, too. I get the same thing. It's just, there's like this weird sense of possibility throughout it that seems kind of cool.
I felt like, in a way, and not to sound too self-glamorizing, but in a way I felt like I was reading about a version of myself because that's like what I wanted to be on my way to becoming when I was in my early 20s and I was writing for newspapers.
Oh, nice.
And you know, I ran into a friend a while back, and I had just quit a newspaper job and kind of decided that I didn't want to be a reporter anymore. And I was talking to him about it, and I had started when he and I were in college together, and he said to me, well, you kind of had this personality of, you wanted to be like the reporter, like the hard drinking, hard smoking, I'm going to get the scoop on this story. There's corruption somewhere. I'm going to fucking find it. It's like that was what you adopted as your personality back then. And I feel like it just took you 8 years to realize that that doesn't exist in local news.
That'd be incredible if it did, though.
Right?
Oh my God, that'd be so fun.
I know. The last paper I worked for, the first story was like, they were going to knock down this beaver dam because it was messing up some conservation land or something like that.
Oh, Christ.
But I write this story just about, I'm just echoing like what was said at this Board of Selectmen meeting. And I immediately get like a bunch of emails from these beaver conservation groups. And I'm like, here's a story. Here we go. Oh my God.
Did you write it?
No, I
That's pretty sick, though. I mean, I don't know. If you're going to do it all the way, you know? If you're going to be a reporter, I would so live that life if I could. Like, that'd be just that classic image of the typewriter and the single light bulb hanging down and the thing of scotch. It's like, that seems like a blast.
It depends on what you're writing about, though.
Yeah,
really.
Definitely.
I mean, you got to be writing some magazine-worthy stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That seems like a treacherous climb to get to that, because I wanted to do that for a while too. I think when I was in high school, I was really fascinated by that because it just seemed fun. It had a lot of the music elements where it's like a passport to kind of go anywhere.
Right.
But it was writing, which I like that a lot.
Yeah.
But it looked so insanely murky as how you'd actually do it, like how you start, where you go, all that. Like music made sense because it's like you just do records and then you keep doing records and hopefully somebody gives a shit. But I never understood how to break into that world.
One of the first stories I ever wrote was in Lancaster. We had a folk festival for a few years. The first year, Arlo Guthrie was there.
Wow. I
had no idea who he was when I was 21 years old. And so my editor was telling me, like, oh, you don't know Alice's Restaurant? And I'm like, no. Now? I can live without the song. Like, it's a cute thing to listen to on Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Have you seen the movie?
No.
It's incredible.
There's a movie of the song?
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's not just an 18-minute movie. It's it's like an hour and a half, whatever. But it was made like 2 years after the song came out. And what it is like it's a portrait of not only the story that the song tells, but also just that time in the 60s. Arlo Guthrie's dad was dying in the hospital. His friends were kind of like, they had this sort of hippie commune going on in this church. And those people, you know, Alice and her husband who had bought the church, they're depicted in this movie as like two people from the older generation who are trying to parent and protect these younger hippie kids who are all, you know, either trying to dodge the draft or they're not able to, and they're coming back injured. And, you know, and they're just trying to throw a comfort blanket over this whole generation of kids who are artistic and who are trying to live beautiful lives, but are being sort of stifled.
Yeah, I never thought about it that way. That's cool. It's
a really, really nice movie. So now it's really important to me. At the time, I had no idea what it was.
Yeah.
And so like I get myself a press pass and I go to this folk festival, and you know, years later, this is probably one of my bigger regrets. It's not a bad regret to have, but I didn't meet Arlo Guthrie. Yeah. Because I didn't know who he was, and I didn't know the power of the press pass. Yeah. Like, I'm the journalist. I'm supposed to be walking up to him and interviewing him and actually like having a conversation. But I was so new to it. It just didn't occur to me. I'm like, well, he's a celebrity. I should probably give him his space. So,
well, that's how I am too. I would never ever be able to be comfortable with that. I don't think of just strutting right up and being like, "Hello, listen, I'm important."
It's a weird dynamic to just assume between you and another person.
Yeah. Assume anything. Yeah, it's just it's really presumptuous, and I've never felt comfortable with that. Yeah.
The second year they actually had Richie Havens, but I didn't cover that, and then they stopped doing it because they were losing a ton of money paying these big names.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be cool if that was still going on now.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of things like that besides Lowell. I think that's the main one.
Lowell is, oddly enough, it's like the folk city now.
Yeah.
It's somehow that's what it became. I guess the folk festival is like 30 years old, right?
Something like that. It's pretty old, yeah.
Yeah, but now they have all these venues and all these restaurants that are having folk players come. So it's really cool.
Yeah.
The hearing room.
It's kind of got, the hearing room, yeah.
Yeah.
And all the UMass Lowell stuff, it's big on jazz right now, and there's a lot of punk and like kind of indie going on in some of the little places. It's really turning into a mecca over there.
All right, I'm running out of battery here.
Okay.
So, but we're gonna play a song, and what have you decided on?
I guess Big Empty Shoes.
Okay,
we could try that.
All right,
it's only verses.
It's only verses, no
good
choruses.
Quick one. Yeah, it's a nice one.
Nice, no key changes.
No.
All right.
Yesterday's old smile still on my face. In a town with half a horse, you look your best, you feel your